Hey there guys, this is Greg from NFG Customs, and tonight we are going to do some upgrades to a Resurrection. So we have this sweet Resurrection here, custom anodized, really nice, and we are going to hook it up with some of the latest upgrades from our buddies over at Inception. So for those of you that don't know, they've been working on putting stuff in kits, right? So you've always been able to get the pneumatics kit. These things run, I think they're 180 bucks. And that includes all your pneumatics, right? You got your LPR, your RAM, your three-way, some hose locks, all the stuff you need. But one of the new things that they started doing are these super sweet lowers kits, all right? So in here is everything that you need for the lower tube. You get the valve, the hammer, your springs, an IVG, and a timing rod, or not a timing rod, a cocking rod if you need it, and all the little screws and everything. And they have a couple of different kits based on, you know, what you're doing. So there's basically a full block and a half block retro that comes with an 11/16 valve, and then there's a full block and a half block WGP that comes with a 9/16 valve. Basically, if you get the half block version, it doesn't come with the cocking rod, because guess what? You don't need it. But usually what I do is I tell guys, hey, just get the full block one because they're the same price. Then you have a cocking rod. So when you have an extra cocking rod, you can hang on to it. I actually use them. I use them as tools. When I get ones that are beat up, I just kind of save them and I use them for cutting nylon threads or putting hammers in or whatever else. It just gives you an extra little bit of control when you are working with your hammer. So anyway, these kits run about 80 bucks, and they're great. I mean, they have everything that you need. So it really makes it simple when you're looking to do some upgrades. So anyway, so enough yakking and looking at my ugly mug. Let's get to it. All right, so here we go. This is the guy that we're gonna do. My table is a little bit of a mess tonight. I've been in here working all day trying to get everybody's guns out in time for ICPL and other events. I guess I don't know that they're all ICPL, but I would imagine some of them are going to guys who are going to the ICPL. So first things first, let's get this guy stripped down, and we're going to start by taking the frame off. This is really, really nice anno. I'm not quite sure who did it, but it's really a nice Galaxy anno pattern. They did a really good job. I'm not sure if it was Rob at Blizzard or somebody else. So, but all right. So let's go ahead and, since we're doing this, let's go ahead and get the ASA off of here. I don't particularly care for the Empire ASAs. They're kind of a pain in the ass to put on and off, and they I don't know, I don't like how they don't work very well with ball valves, and I don't know, I just don't like them. I don't like the little lever on them. I think hands down the best ASA out there is Simon's, the Easy ASA. I mean, that thing is just great. It's better than the Pops because you don't have sometimes with the Pops it's like a real pain in the butt to get it open, or power it on rather. All right. So to get these things off, so there's no external screws like there is on the Inception or a Pops. You actually have to take the frame, the grip panels off and get in there inside the frame. And the front one isn't bad, but the back one is a little tricky. it looks like whoever put this on didn't use Loctite. So that's making our life a little bit easier. Sorry about that. Give me 1 second here. I got to yeah, these freaking things. Yeah, these gimbals can be a pain in the ass sometimes. So anyway, let's get back to it. So yeah, they didn't use Loctite, so that's awesome because it makes it real easy to take this thing off. Otherwise, we would be wrestling with it a little bit. We actually have some really cool guns that came in this week that we're going to be doing. Videos on. So we have there's a really cool Evolution that we're going to tune up and install lowers into. Trying to think what else came in. I have a bunch of builds, some really cool builds. We're going to do a Merlin build one of these days. I just need to buckle down and get to that one. Put that over there in the case. All right, so from this, since we're reusing the Empire ASA, we're going to obviously keep the ASA, and we're going to keep the 2 retaining screws. All right, we're going to need those. So now we're going to install these screws into the Inception frame, which is going to go on the gun. Dun, dun, dun. This is exciting stuff. Watching me put screws in. It's gonna get cooler here in a minute. I just want to get this boring stuff out of the way. Just because this is like my least favorite thing pretty much in the world to do is put these ASAs on anything. And it doesn't help I have these giant freaking hands for these little tiny stupid screws. And kind of the trick is you got to get it. All right, we're going to go the other way here. Oh, almost forgot the Loctite. See, it's a good thing. So we're going to put a dot of Loctite on these guys just so we can make sure that we lock this down so it doesn't wiggle loose, so the guy's air tank doesn't fall off when he's trying to play. So that would be bad. These fucking things. I really hate these screws. This is just like the worst. They just don't work well for me. I'm even using a ball end. That's the real kick in the stones. Yeah, just bear with me here. The trick is you got to get them started, and that's the hard part. Once you get them started, they go right in. At least that's the story I'm sticking with. All right, you know what? We're gonna do this later. Fuck that thing. Anyway, let's get into something interesting. I'm not gonna sit here and fight with these stupid freaking things. All right, so next on the list, we need to do the pneumatics and we need to do the lower tube. So let's go ahead and dive into the lower tube. Alright, so we're taking out the IVG spring. Then we're going to get rid of the hammer. We're going to take the bolt out. Oh, look at that. Colored O-ring on the bolt. We'll have to fix that for him. Let's take the three-way piece out of there too. We don't need that. We don't need to accidentally screw up the timing rod. And I guess just for brevity, let's take off the HPR so we don't screw that up. So first things first, let's remove our hose. It's always a good idea to, I pop off all the hose locks when they're on there. And honestly, hose locks are one of those things you don't really need. If you're blowing hoses, then, you know, your pressure's too high. But it is nice, it does kind of keep them on there. Sometimes hoses get loose and they just kind of pop off, so. I actually use these pliers here. These are like some, they're really small, like needle nose size, but they're wide and flat, and they're really great for getting on these hoses. So you just grab it and they pop right off. Sometimes with needle nose, it rips the hose. These just pull it right off. I've never had these rip a hose ever. For this middle one, I always like to do, usually I do either the RAM or the LPR first, but for this one, or just in general, I usually do the middle LPR, the middle hose on the LPR supply hose. That's the one I do first usually. Well, I do the three-way first, and then I do the thing. Usually I do like the RAM. For the two RAMs, I do those first. God, I just can't think tonight. I'm coming off a week where I was in a quote-unquote face-to-face meeting. 3 frickin' days of talking about stuff in meetings, and I really hate meetings. So I am just completely mentally exhausted. So you can just bear with me. This is my therapy after having to sit and listen to people flap their gums. Hate the little top hat looking hose clamps. Dude, those things were the best. I don't know what you're talking about. Crazy Ed Zuba. Hating on the top hats. Yeah, those things actually were a pain in the ass. Alright. So, with the Empire stuff, right? And the Inception stuff, you can just unscrew the LPR from it, right? And then you can actually use a ratchet, and you're going to use a 5/8 socket to remove it, all right? So, but we'll get to there in a minute. This thing is really on here. Oh, man. All right, so we got some new soft grip tools here. So let's see if these will help with this sticky RAM. Oh, look at that. If I can, there we go. Yeah, I got these on Amazon, and they were really cheap, so I figured I'd give them a try. God, this thing is freaking on here. Holy shit. All right, so we're gonna have to go the other route. This thing is just super on here. I can't believe how tight this ram is. Jesus. This thing is just really, really on here. It almost feels like it's cross-threaded in there, and I really hope it's not. I'm just hoping. I'm hoping against hope that they used Loctite or something on there. But this thing is just really, really on here. Yeah, if you're ever putting a ram on, don't put it on this tight. Yeah, this is crazy. You gotta love working on autocockers because there's just nothing like it. There's nothing as frustrating yet rewarding as working on them. Yeah, I can't believe how freaking tight this thing is. This is just nuts. There we go. Finally. Good Lord. I mean, this thing is on here like gangbusters, man. I'm not sure what gangbusters is, but it's on there like that. I just really want to try and use my new soft grip tools. Yeah, this thing is just crazy on here. This is almost embarrassing how on here this thing is. And a disclaimer, there was a set screw here and it was loosened and I completely removed it. Just in case that was holding stuff up, but yeah, this thing's really, really on here. I'm just really curious to get this off, why this thing is on here. Again, I really hope it's not cross-threaded because that's gonna suck. I mean, this is crazy. This is like, I have never, ever, ever seen a ram on here like this. Ever. I hope this doesn't foreshadow the three-way. I hope this isn't going to be the three-way experience too. think this might be the end of days for my rubber thing here too. I love this little thing. It's one of those rubber jar openers, and it works really, really good. This predated my soft jaw pliers that appear to be pretty much worthless. But whatever. Now we can say I tried them. Oh my God. What in the hell? Maybe the anode's just really thick on it. I don't know. Pretty cute. All right, let's take this take the sled off here. So we can get a look at this. Yeah, these threads are just all screwed up on this hammer, or on this ram. This might be a bigger project than one video. Just yeah, this is yeah, it looks like when they wrenched that on there, it looks like some of the threads might have kind of cross-threaded on there and just made a mess of things. Right now I'm just trying to get the little bits and pieces out of here. Yeah, Ed, this was not Loctited actually. This looks like when it was put in, it cross-threaded. Luckily the threads on this are okay, but the threads on the ram are screwed up. Well, that sucks. But it is what it is. Sometimes you run into that. I mean, that thing was really on there tight, so I'm wondering if maybe that guy, whoever built it, just really wrenched down on it. I don't know. Now comes the fun game of, do I have a wrench that fits the Empire Ram? Oh, I don't need it. Perfect. So we'll put that over there. All right. So we got that. Now we get to fight with the three-way. And this also has a little set screw. I'm just going to take it all the way out this time. I loosened these previously, but I'm just going to take them out. They shouldn't be there anyway. Oh, good. All right, well, that at least comes out. So anyway, so let's go ahead. We're going to remove the LPR. Well, the LPR nub. All right. So if you look here, this probably wasn't sealing up very well because it looks like they used well, they used some sort of Teflon tape, but it was wrapped incorrectly, so it was just pushed out of the threads. It didn't really thread in at all, so it was just metal on metal, and it wasn't in there very tight, so I really doubt it even held air. So we're gonna fix that. Oh, this is the Empire one. So let's go ahead and put this on the Empire one. And let's get our Inception ones prepped. And then let's get our barbs out, our ram, our 3-way, on our hose locks. There we go. And then we'll put the old pneumatics inside the package for the new pneumatics. Or what's left of the old pneumatics, I should say, I guess. Alright, so we get that. And we're going to take the thing off the 3-way. Put that in there. Ram in there, and that's that. Okay. All right, so now we're going to take little Loctite 545. This stuff is great. It's expensive, but I bought this like 2 years ago, and I mean, I'm a cocker tech, and I still have like half a jar. So you only need a little bit. Make sure you do shake it. All right, it should come out. It should be a nice dark purple. It should be somewhat thick. Not like super thick, but like, you know, like Loctite. Should be like the consistency of Loctite. And then you want to put that on your threads just like that. You want a nice even coating. And then usually I just let it sit. All right, while we're waiting for that, let's get our smexy new 3-way here. So these are the new, UFC 3-ways, so you can tell there's a couple things here. So here at the back, this has a straight cut, and then it also is milled out here, just kind of right here. You can see this used to be solid, and it just lightens things up a little bit. I mean, neither of those things really increase performance, but it definitely, you know, makes things a little bit nicer. But the difference between this and the old 3-way is that the holes inside of the 3-way that the O-rings kind of ride across to move the air, those are actually, so they drill down and then they take the tool up and then they get a smaller drill bit to finish the hole. And that, so the inside hole is actually the same diameter as the hole inside the barb, in the middle of the barb. So your 3-way only has to travel basically the opening of the barb to open and close, which is awesome. That makes it really, really fast, and that's pretty much, that's one of the major things that we leverage in order to get that super short trigger pull that we are known for. So let's go ahead, we'll put our swanktastic new 3-way on here. And sometimes when you put them on, you end up like that, and you just spin it back around. These things you don't need these things to be locked down, all right? If anything, it's good to have them floating a little bit because you have O-rings moving back and forth, and if this has a little bit of give to it, it's going to keep your O-ring wear more uniform. So they're probably going to last longer, right? So we got our ram. Let's prep our ram. So the first thing we do with our ram is we remove our barbs. And this is just a 1/4-inch nut driver, and that'll take off all the barbs for the LPR and the rams. makes it real nice. And let's thread on our cocking arm, or our pump arm. And Inception actually preloads these things with a thread locker, which is pretty nice. It makes it, it's one less thing that you have to have as an end user. You know, you don't need to put Loctite on there. You don't need to screw around with it. Now, usually what I do with these is there's a tool hole at the back, and I just kind of put my 4mm wrench on the tool flats on the ram, and I just screw it on there. And I know a lot of guys like they leave a little bit of space, like right there, and don't do that. Just screw it all the way home. I mean, if you need to add a little bit of length, that's a way you can cheat and do it, but I wouldn't. I would not recommend doing that. So, thus endeth the sermon. All right, so we got our LPR here. So let's go ahead and remove the base. And we're going to take it, and we are going to thread the base on there. And the nice thing about doing this with a socket is that, you know, you're not messing around with a wrench. You don't have any sharp tools, so you don't really. You almost have to try to scratch these things. So when you're using the socket, just be somewhat careful, and you'll be fine. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to figure out which way that hole's facing, so I can get that lined up the way that I want it. And lucky for me, it's facing straight out that way. So I am just going to bring it around like that. And I usually give it a little bit extra because it's nice to have a little bit of play in the LPR positioning. So so as soon as it hits that rubber seal at the back, you know, I kind of have I can maneuver it a little bit. I got a little bit of play, which is nice because sometimes when you're hooking these hoses up and everything, you can get jammed up with the you can get jammed up and get a kinked hose, and that's a pain in the ass. So this gives you the ability to be like, oh, okay, I can just, you know, wiggle this around a little bit, and it's good. Because these things, the hoses are going to hold them in place. The hoses are short, they're locked down. So if you have a little bit of play, it's not going to hurt anything. So let's go ahead, we'll put our ram on. Actually, hang on, let me clean this out a little bit more. God, what a mess. But I guess it wouldn't be working on autocockers if you didn't have one thing get screwed up every once in a while, right? All right, let's see if this will thread in easy now. Another thing I like to do when I'm messing with these is I get the cocking rod in position and I kind of pinch it like that when I'm screwing it on. All right. And so now our barbs are going to be pointing that way, but it's fairly tight. So we just give that, you know, a quarter to a third of a turn back, and the ram has just a little bit of give to it. And the same principle that we just talked about with the three-way is gonna go with the ram as well. So we want to make sure that there's a little bit of give in that ram, so that as those, you know, as that piston is going up and down, it's going to be able to wear more evenly. Because if there's any kind of twist or anything, the ram is just going to shift a little bit to kind of to respond to that force, and that's going to keep your O-rings healthy and happy. God, I can't believe how, I just can't believe how tight that fucking thing was on there. Jesus, that's nuts. All right. So we have our pneumatics largely installed. But before we go any further there, let's go ahead and get into the lower tube. So 11/16 valve lower tubes are great because you can do everything without any kind of crazy tools. You don't need a special valve tool. You don't need any nonsense. You just need a 1/8 Allen key for the hammer, and you need a next size up for the and you just need the next size up for the hammer lug, which is I got to cheat and look. So 9/64. All right. So again, there's no Loctite or anything on here. Usually with these with the valve screws, it's really kind of a smart idea to. I usually use VC3 on them because this is one of the points that there's a lot of vibration that comes there because it's, you figure that hammer is hitting that guy all the time. I don't like the Empire screws. They have these stupid, like, it's like this screw with a little O-ring on it, and it's always a pain in the ass to get out. You gotta, like, brace it and kind of push up on the valve a little bit to get it out. It's kind of a pain in the ass. All right, so let's get the old valve out. That's really my only complaint with the Empire valve. They're actually pretty good valves. Man, this thing's in here tight too. This is like, this is crazy. I just can't believe how tight this fucking valve is. How'd they get it in here? Let's try doing this. There we go. Man, this thing is, lower two of this thing is like crazy tight. They must have laid the ano on extra thick. I don't know. All right, so we got our valve out. Got the spring. And that's one thing you do kind of want to do when you're doing these things is pay attention to the parts that are coming out. Make sure everything is coming out. Usually with the bigger parts like valves and stuff, it's less likely you're going to forget to take the valve out. But a lot of times when you're doing like O-rings and that kind of nonsense, it's really easy to miss an O-ring. So it's always good to kind of keep track of what you're doing. So, all right, so that is that. So let's go ahead and get our swanktastic, brand new Inception Inception internals. So we got our ram, or not our ram. Ugh, God, I'm a mess tonight. Our hammer. Here's our valve assembly. And then somewhere in here there should be a valve screw. Aha. There it is. Thank God I'm fat, right? Good thing I had an extra piece of barbecue tonight for dinner. All right. So there is our new valve. So one of the things I do with these valves is I just take a thing and I just nip the very ends off. It just gives a little bit of extra clearance. Because sometimes they'll get hung up. And this eliminates that. So let's go ahead. We're gonna lube this sucker up. And I actually lied. You do need a very specialized tool to install one of these valves. So we'll get to that in just a second. All right. There we go. You need a piece of PEX, 1/2-inch PEX. Valve tool for the retro / Empire / anything 11/16 valve. We're going to put a little dot of VC3. We're not putting much, just a dot, just a little bit. Don't go nuts. This stuff, a little bit goes a long way. All you're trying to do, really, is just give that screw a little bit, just a little bit of stickiness, and then a little something just to kind of keep it from vibrating, just something to absorb the vibration a little bit. So let's put our valve spring on there. There we go. And usually what I do for this is I stand this up. So let me show you exactly how I do this. And then rather than trying to shove the valve into the gun, I just ease the gun down over the valve. And this valve actually fits in there like perfect. Whereas the other valve, somebody's been using brand X. So that other valve, maybe that guy was just a little too fat. I have noticed that the Empire stuff that has been coming out lately has just been freaking terrible. It's just been, stuff has not really been very consistent or good. I fixed a couple of guns where they've come from the factory. The bolt won't clear the breech, leaks, all kinds of stuff. So they're whatever has been coming in lately and they've been brand new guns. That's the most disconcerting part of it. So this is the Inception hammer. You can see, it's a little bit longer than the Empire hammer, a little bit heavier. But the big difference is this guy has a hole here, and you can put a nylon screw in there for your cocking or for your cocking rod. So remember how I told you I use them for tools? So here's my cocking rod tool, and what we're going to do is I'm just going to thread this guy on here, and we're going to use this to slide it in there. And the nice thing about doing it this way is that you don't have to mess around with it. You just kind of slide it in there, and you can move it around. If it wiggles one way or the other, you just twist it back with your cocking rod. Real nice and easy. So boilerplate setting for this is 3.5 turns. So 1, 2, 3.5. And then we are going to remove the cocking rod. His purposes here are done. And then inside that hammer, there is a small set screw for the lug. So we are going to go ahead and we're going to tighten said set screw. That's so fucked up, Ed. Oh, man. All right, so hammer's in there, valve's in there. Let's take our spring, we'll put that in there. Wait a minute. All right, so it's real easy to get the Empire spring and the Inception spring kind of confused. Real easy way to tell is that the Inception spring is the one that shoots across the room. So, but yeah, that one's just a little bit heavier. How embarrassing. I shot my spring. Yeah, so you can tell the Inception one is just a little bit, just a tiny bit heavier. Gotta get all the cat hair off it. Stupid cat. My cat comes in here and works on autocockers when I'm not around. Not really, but how cool would that be? I have a cat that works on autocockers. Now what did I do with that IVG? Here's the new IVG. There we go. So brand spanking new Inception IVG. So the design has changed. It used to be like this. Now it's solid, which I don't know if there's a, I don't know what the design reason is about doing it. You know, what the real, you know, why they changed it, but I like it. It definitely makes it a little bit easier to kind of screw in there, especially when you have fresh ano. So maybe that's just the reason why. You know, it just makes things a little bit easier. And I mean, there's zero effect on performance. So it's not like, you know, the grooves in your IVG are going to matter at all. So we gotta put the sled on. Forgot to put the sled on. So all right, so we're going to make a base assumption here. Oh shit, hang on here. Forgot the VC3. Dang it, Martha. Forgot the GDVC3. There we go. All right, we'll just take this guy out for now and just let him sit. Let that VC3 set up for just a minute. In the meantime, we can go ahead and install our LPR barb. There we go. Ready to shoot right now. She's ready. All right. That's probably set up enough. So let's thread that through there again. And we're going to just kind of, we're going to try and eyeball this up a little bit because so the setting with these is you want the sled. So where the sled ends up is really important because you need to be able to clear. You need to be able to have the bolt clear the breech, and it's easiest to do this before you get all that. You know, all the stuff with the, you know, the ram all tightened down and all the hoses and everything. So I like to do this early. So if we look, we have a little gap here. That's too much of a gap. We should have some gap, but not that much. So we're gonna back this guy off a little bit. And of course, it unscrewed partially here. So we're gonna push this guy forward another couple of turns to try and make that gap up. Maybe one extra turn there. And let's see where that gets us. So we don't want to be right up against the curve in the body, but we want to be pretty close. Think about it like a back block, right? So you don't want your back block hitting the body, but you want it to get pretty close. And the rule of thumb is like a piece of paper. So this here, it has a little bit of a gap there. So let's see how our bolt lines up. Okay, so that should work. It comes back a little far. So maybe we'll take that in just a hair. One more turn should do it. And then I think we're good. And I always see guys like trying to like do these sleds, and they'll like, you know, kind of, they won't unscrew the ram and they'll just kind of bend the arm up, and that's terrible. Don't ever do that. You know what? We'll take it in. We'll take it in 2 turns. There we go. All right, I think I'm happy now. There we go. And let's see where that got us. So that should put us kind of close to the body, but not right up against it. And that is perfect right there. So you can kind of see there's a little bit of room there, but not much. So I can stick this Allen key in there, and it just barely fits. And let's double check that setting with our bolt, because we don't have everything all locked down. And some of this stuff is just, so if you work on these guns, a lot of this is you just kind of learn as you go. And it's, a lot of the stuff just kind of becomes knowledge, just stuff that, you know, you see something so many times, you're like, oh, okay, I know what that is. Oh, okay, I know what that is. So, all right, I think that sled set pretty good. Looks like the bolt travel is correct. So let's go ahead. We can add our barbs onto our ram here. And one fun thing, don't try and run the barbs in. Start them with your hands, because you don't want to cross thread a barb. That's never makes for a fun day, especially when they decide to break off. So, all right. So one of the things that guys like to do is reuse hoses. I would caution against that. Unless if it's, you know, new hose. These hoses here I could probably reuse, but you know what? We got brand new hose. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to use that brand new hose and hose locks. And this other hose will just, it'll go the way of the trash can. So, all right, there's all 6 of our hose locks. All right, so when I do my hose, I just take the whole length of it and kind of feed it on there. And then I get things in position the way I want them to sit. And then that's where I cut my hose. I used to be like super anal retentive, and I measured every hose so I knew exactly the exact length that the hose needed to be how I wanted it. And I stopped doing that. Really kind of pointless. All right, so this guy's a little long. We're gonna take just a little nub off. There we go. So we got that one. Now we're going to do the LPR. And don't forget to put your hose locks on. So I put my hose locks on literally as soon as I make the cut. And I know some guys don't use the hose locks. I just like them because you can use them to cover up the barbs on the 3-way. I just think it looks, just makes the gun look a little cleaner, I think. For me, it's aesthetics as opposed to any kind of real functionality. So we're gonna put that hose on there. And then there's that play we're talking about. We're gonna turn that LPR so that the barb, and then we have our hoses are all lined up there and they look nice, right? I like it when my hoses look nice. I hate it. I hate seeing sloppy hose jobs. put our hose locks on here, like so. You know, Ed, you don't really need hose locks, honestly. I mean, I put them on just because I think they look clean here. But I mean, they don't really. Essentially, if you're blowing hoses, your LPR is too high. So no matter what you do, it's wrong. So if you're getting to that point where it's just blowing hoses, or your hose needs to be replaced. That's the only really real case, or you're using the wrong hose. So there's 3 cases, okay? Maybe 4. Okay, there could be a 5th one. I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling here. All right, so we got our pneumatics installed. Look at those hoses. That looks great. I am so proud of myself. All right. What is next? All right, so let's do our timing rod here. So with this, I thread them in until I feel them hit the nylons, and then I just give them just enough to lock them into the nylons. And there's just a little bit of lube on there. I like a little bit extra lube on there. Basically, the way these things work is that if there's too much lube, it'll blow it out. So I put a little extra just to be safe. Because what we don't want is to accidentally slice an O-ring trying to put this guy in here or anything like that. And a little bit of lube always helps. A little lube's never a bad thing. So, all right. So we got that. And guess what? We're at the point now where we have to, with the stupid screws again. I have been dreading this for like the last, I don't know how long we've been sitting here, is getting these damn screws in. God, I hate these things. Oh, now it wants to go right in. This screw is a dick. So, all right, so pretty much we want to get them in there so that they're, the tips are flush with the bottom, so that way we can slide the ASA on there. That one's a little too far. So we'll back it out. That guy still has Loctite on him. So have I mentioned how much I hate ASAs with this installation? Of course, it doesn't help my Allen keys are somewhat magnetized. I have this magnetic bowl, and it loves to. And if my Allen keys get touched by the magnet on the bowl, then it magnetizes them, and that makes life just a real pain in the ass for a while. It fades out eventually, but it's really just kind of a pain in the balls when it happens. All right, so we're gonna go to plan B. And I don't like doing it this way, but it does work. So we're gonna go in from the bottom. So this is a trick. We kind of go in So we, instead of screwing the screw in from the top, we try and go in from the bottom. And I wonder if the screw is just kind of fucked up. Maybe the screw is just a... Maybe the screw is a problem child. Maybe that's the problem. You know what? I happen to have an extra Inception screw here. Let's try that one. Put a little Loctite on there. A lot of Loctite on there. This guy's never coming off again. Wow. The Inception screws are a little bit longer, so this might be easier to put in, or not. Maybe it's just going to keep being a little bitch and falling. I don't know. Maybe we'll try putting this one in from the bottom then. There we go. I got it. Haha. There we go. In from the bottom. This is just the worst. I hate these screws. There we go. All right, so now we're gonna put our swank anodized ASA on here. And if these screws are not flush with the bottom, with the frame, then it won't slide on. But then you set it, and then you tighten these things down. It's actually, I mean, it's not a bad system. I mean, it does hold the ASAs on there. It's definitely secure. But it's just kind of, it's just such a pain in the ass when you want to take your ASA off. And sometimes, like, there are cases where, you know, you want to take it off and it's just a huge pain in the ass to do and just generally miserable. But this makes it easy, so. All right. We're gonna put our screws for our grips back in there. There we go. And this frame is already set up for a SST trigger job. I was working on that earlier. And if you look here, so we have our super short trigger there, and now the safety works. So I figured out how to modify the plate so we have a safety, which is awesome. So I'm gonna have to go and fix some guys' guns, but yeah, now they have safety. All right, so let's go ahead and mount the Inception frame. I forgot to open the screws. damn it. So for Inception and Empire bodies, you use the skinny screws, and the fat screws, well, those are for WGP bodies. All right. And you notice what I'm not doing here? You notice I'm not taking the tool and putting it here and going like that to tighten these. If you're doing that, you are over tightening, okay? Especially on frame screws, all right? If you tighten them down too hard, you're just gonna strip the aluminum out. And you don't wanna do that, because that's bad. All right, look at that, shooting like a champ. So let's go ahead, we're going to set this guy so that, you know, it'll work. So basically what we want to do is we want to set this three-way to 1.5 turns from flush. So right now we are at flush. The three-way is all the way forward. So we're going to go 1.5 turns, and that should get us pretty close to where we need to be. Add a little bit of pressure on the LPR. And let us install our HPR back. And there we go. Actually, the end of this hose looks like somebody chewed it. So we're going to use these super swank new cutters I got for macro line. So check those out. They are swank and they cut macro line like a champ. They also got blade storage back here. So right here in the handle. So that's pretty nice. You don't have to have blades flopping around the toolbox. And it came with an extra piece there, so an extra jaw piece should anything replace or anything need to be replaced. I also got, since we're showing off new tools, I also got some swank new Bondus Allen keys. I got the metric set and another set of standard. I had the little set, but as you can see, this set is superior because it's much, much bigger. It has like 3 or 4 extra Allen keys, which is nice. I missed that the .050 Allen key is nice to have. And then there's some other ones in here that I did not previously have. And I have all the metric ones, so that's a big plus. That was like $26 on Amazon, so definitely worth picking that set up. It's definitely worth doing. So, all right, this thing is really crisp. So let's go ahead. We're gonna put our hose on. There we go. All right, so let's see where we're at here. All right, so we have entirely too much lug. So let's get our 1/8. And we are going to back that lug out. I'm going to take it out like 1.5 turns. Oh, the other nice thing about the cocking rod, when you're setting timing on a half block, it's nice to have a cocking rod because then you don't have to put the bolt back in to test it. All right, so we took too much off. So now we're going to start the process of dialing it in. So we're going to go 1/4 turn. Not yet, but it's getting close. I feel it riding. So another 1/4 turn, All right, so now it's just starting to catch. We're gonna do another quarter turn, see where that gets us. Gets me a stuck Allen key, right? All right, so that's holding. All right, now let's. All right, safety success. All right, so I think we're just about right where we need to be. Maybe we'll tweak that lug adjustment just a little bit. Just bring it up just a hair. One of the things that I do like to check, so when I'm setting the lug, I'll make that adjustment and I'll set it up. And then, and this works for when you have a cocking rod, right? And if you push on it, you want to make sure that it doesn't release. So there are times when you're setting this lug, sometimes that thing is going to want to release. And let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, so we got it perfectly timed, so now we're going to mess it up. So hang on here. All right, so this is what you want to avoid. Oh, now it's not going to do it. Dang it. Normally I do this and it's like doing it all the frickin' time. So we're going to back it off just a hair, see if that gets us. There you go, see? So if this goes back and you can push this in, and now it's not going to do it again. There it goes. Then it's your lug is too short. So you want to make sure that that's a test. So you set your lug, you push on the cocking rod, right? And then it's usually, there we go. See, now it's still a little too short. So we're going to give it another just 1/8 of a turn. And now we're solid. You can't push. We'll give it just a hair. Just a hair more. There we go. All right, now it's not going anywhere. And what that does is that allows you to get the closest. Doing that setting allows you to get the shortest possible lug pull. So essentially, you have the least amount of lug hitting the least amount of sear. Now, the only bad thing about that is that it is going to put a little bit more. It's more likely to wear your sear, but if you like to shoot fast, that's one of the things you want to do. So, and a lot of it is a lot of getting that trigger pull is just it's trial and error. It's messing with it, and making sure that it's doing what it needs to do. So there we go. This guy's all upgraded. We got the pneumatics in there. We got the lower tube in there. We have the Inception frame with the Delrin trigger plate. So once I get a chance to go ahead and test this guy with paint, we're going to dial it in, and this thing is going to be screaming. So that's it, and that was an adventure. There's little shards of metal all over the place from that cross-threaded ram. I'm still kind of I'm not sure exactly how that happened. I guess the guy like put it on there and cross-threaded and kept going, but there's just little pieces everywhere. I've never seen that behavior before. So interesting stuff. So all right, guys. Anything anybody wants to ask? Any questions? Anything you want to talk about real quick? While I clean up the table here and pack up the tools. I'll sit here and answer any questions you might have. Anybody have anything that they want to say? Any questions you want to ask? All right, well, we're down to 2 Allen keys left to put away, and then I'm gonna go. All right, the last Allen key. That's it. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining me. If I missed your question earlier, you can comment below, and I'll add it in there. And I'll address it. But yeah, so thanks for joining us, and we'll probably do another video next week after the holiday. We have some cool builds coming up that we want to share with you guys. There's a few guns coming in for different tuning and whatnot. We do all kinds of guns, and I just try to give you guys the interesting ones, the cool ones. So you know, just makes things a little bit more interesting and fun when it's something different and not the same old. But I have been getting guys asking about the resurrection upgrades. So yeah, this thing looks nice, and it is going to just wail when I get done with it. I did one of these a couple months ago, and these things are just, I can make these things just shoot so good. I love them. All right, guys. Well, have a great night. If I don't talk to you, have a safe and happy Memorial Day. Grill some hot dogs, burn up some burgers. Don't drink and drive, though. You know, if you're gonna drink, stay home. I don't want to hear about any of my buddies getting killed, or customers. I don't want any of my customers getting killed or getting thrown in jail, because that's bad. That's bad for business. So, anyway, guys, I'll talk to you soon.